everyone, and welcome back to the Divorce Chronicles. It's a whole new year, and so we're excited to bring you new guests that will help support you in your divorce journey. I'm your host, Shauna Warden, divorce and co-parent coach, and today I'm joined by someone I'm really excited to have on the show, Brittany Deutsch. Brittany is a licensed professional counselor and board-certified registered art therapist, and the founder of Creative Source Counseling. She helps women and LGBTQ plus clients move from overwhelm and self-doubt to confidence and self-trust, especially those navigating separation or divorce. Her work blends talk therapy, art therapy, and nervous system awareness to help clients process their emotions, set boundaries without guilt, and reconnect with themselves as they move into their next chapter. One of the questions I hear all the time from clients is, do I need a therapist, a coach, or both? So today, Brittany and I are going to talk about the differences between therapy and divorce coaching, how they complement each other, and how to know what kind of support is right for you at different stages of your divorce journey. This is going to be a very real, honest, and practical conversation. So whether you're newly separated, deep in the process, or trying to figure out co-parenting, you're in the right place. Brittany, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here and to have this conversation with you. I know that we've been talking about this for a while, so I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, so we actually originally connected because you reached out with your practice. You support a lot of people going through several different areas of transition, but one specifically being divorce. And so we've been able to connect over not only the similarities, but also the differences and like how both of our areas of expertise can complement each other.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was looking and I found your name, I really just love to be able to give my clients a whole circle of support. And I know that you feel similarly. And so when thinking about who I wanted to connect them to be able to give resources, that's how I found your name. So it's been really great to be able to provide that for them too.
Yeah, so I think for the listeners and for probably a lot of, at least my clients, I get questions of like, what is the difference between therapy and a coach? Or people are surprised that, my clients have a therapist and a coach. So do you want to go into what is the difference?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, and you can speak more on the divorce coach part of it and what it is that you're saying. But the way that I view it is that the coach is really helpful in navigating all of the kind of logistical pieces, the action steps. This is what you can do in order to move forward. And the therapist is more of, oh my gosh, life is now on fire. There's all of these emotions that have shown up. There might be guilt that's shown up. There's different relational patterns that you might be seeing of like, gosh, I always do this in my relationship. Or the fact that you had an idea of what life was going to look like and that has completely shifted and now you have no idea who you are or what you're doing, right? There's so many of those kind of internal emotional pieces that you're really faced with during this process. So we navigate all of that internal emotional trauma, relationship, that stuff.
Yeah, and something that just came to mind is, I think they overlap, of course. So we both deal with emotions and we both try to help with actions and logistics. But disagree with me or whatever, tell me your feedback. I feel like you are more heavy on the emotions, the patterns, the how did I get here and how do I not repeat this again? Or, the grief that comes with it. So heavy on the emotions, light on the logistics because, not everyone is versed in the process and do this first, do this next. Okay, yeah, this is normal. Now this is how we handle it. Whereas I also deal with a lot of the emotions, the boundary settings, the co-parenting. You may feel this way, but you need to act this way, but then heavy on the action part of the process of, what steps do I take? When do I take them? And is this normal? All of those things. And so it's like a Venn diagram is what I'm picturing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's definitely the overlap there. Something that I will often say to my clients, because I've had several going through this process. And what I will say to them is, I've had so many people go through this process and every single one has looked so different. So let
Hmm.
me provide you with somebody who can kind of help navigate the more logistical side of this, which it sounds like for you then is do this, then do this, then do this. And that way we can focus more on that emotional piece. Now, yes, when we're in session and they have a conflict with a co-parent or some of that boundary stuff does come up, that is something that we work on. So that probably is the overlapping piece as well, because probably if they are having difficulty in setting boundaries in this area, they're having difficulty setting boundaries in other areas of their life too,
Hmm.
right? So we are working on that. But yeah, as far as like, how does this go? Is this normal? Is this doesn't? I say every single one has looked so different. Here's somebody who can help you kind of navigate that.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point that you bring up because, like it or not, our society is all about comparison these days. And
Mhm.
so there's so many times that clients end up in front of me. And for example, if we're talking about custody, 9 times out of 10, most moms want full custody because of whatever reason. And in Virginia, I have to be the bearer of bad news. That's like realistically, we're looking at 50-50 unless there's some like extreme situations. And then it's like, well, my neighbor got full custody and why can't I? And it's like, even though most divorces, they follow the same pattern, there are those nuances in it where every relationship is different, your household is different, your marriage was different, and so it's helpful to have multiple points of contact to tell them like we cannot look at what other people's divorce
Right.
looks like because your child support is going to be different, your spousal support might be different, you might keep the house, they might sell the house, and so establishing expectations I think is a huge part of at least what I do.
Yeah, absolutely. And that I think is is so important for them to have that piece too. I think because a lot of what I'm working on with clients, it can get frustrating because they want the tell me what's going to happen, tell me what to do. And there is a lot of the we have to sit with multiple things at one time.
Mm-hmm.
Again, especially because we are dealing with the emotions or the fact of, the guilt that comes up or whatever the case may be. It's like we can feel this feeling and you still have to set the boundary with this co-parent if they have kids.
Yes. Yeah. And I have, again, that's, a difference in some clients where it's like, first of all, they all want validation. We all want
Mhm.
validation, right? Like there's so many times that I get asked, did you go through this with your divorce? And
Yeah.
if I say no, then that's one thing. If I say yes, that's another thing. And still, even if I say yes, it's like, but you can't compare that.
Mhm.
But they want validation and they want to know what to expect. And like you said, even like my job is not to tell you what to do. My job is like, I can give you options. I can
Mhm.
tell you what most likely will happen if you choose road A versus road B. And, the outcomes that we might have to grapple with depending on which one you decide to go with. But yeah, there's no, it's like raising kids. We're all kind of on the same path, same
Right.
milestones,
And
but it's
yet
just so different. Even in the same household, they're different.
exactly, exactly. It's so different. And all people want because, everything feels so all over the place and so out of control, and you have no idea what's happening. And then again, like the way that you thought life was going to play out isn't. And so you're dealing with
Mhm.
all that. And when we feel like all of this is out of control and everything is changing and you're in such a big transition, we're trying to hold on to what is it that I can control, right? Or trying to grasp onto those pieces of like, tell me how it's going to go, right? Even though
Mhm.
we know that it's not, but there really is this fear or this sense and just like desire of, I need something to hold on to. And
Mhm.
that's where for you, where you can't give the exactly how this is going to go, you can give that options. And for me, part of it, which can feel frustrating, is how do we sit with the fact that we can't control this right now? How do we
Mhm.
sit with that uncomfortable space? While
Yeah.
also, again, giving the options of how do we build the tools to be able to trust ourselves to handle these things
Mhm.
that feel so out of control. So it is that kind of internal um emotion, but like self-confidence piece, all of that like internal work.
Yes, yes. And I see that a lot. I mean, obviously, I have mostly female clients. I do have male clients, but I mostly see female. And I do think that the getting stuck, right? Getting stuck in the freeze. Like, I don't know. First of all, I'm scared to make a bad decision. I want to be smart. I don't want to be taken advantage of, but I want to be seen as cooperative, but I also need to protect myself and the children. And then, specifically, like I've worked with people before that is like, I didn't ask for this. Why? It's not fair. It's not fair that I have to deal with this and my whole life is changing and I don't want this. And it's like you said, that I love that "and" phrase where it's like, you didn't want this and it's happening. So we cannot just sit here with our head in the sand or you're going to get screwed over, right? We've got to put on our big girl pants and face the music. Otherwise, in 5 years, 10 years, heck, even a year, you're going to be like, oh, man, I wish I took more stake in what was going on.
Right. Right. Absolutely. It is that I like to call it like an unfortunate acceptance, where it is, no, this isn't what you wanted. This isn't what you thought was going to happen. This isn't what you wanted. This isn't what you signed up for. I hear that a lot. Like, this isn't what I signed up for, and this frustration that is there. And we deal with that, right? We have to deal with those emotions. We have to deal with that anger, that frustration, that hurt. And this is what's happening, right? There is that acceptance of like, this is where we're at right now. And so it's holding both of those things where you're holding the emotions that are there and also what does moving forward look like, what is, and for a lot of folks, this might be the first time that they're even asking themselves what it is that they do want, because a lot of times it's, well, this is what the other person wanted, or I just kind of went with it, or they never had the chance to be able to ask themselves for a whole variety of reasons. And that can be a terrifying question, right? And so terrifying. So we're in this, I need to accept that this is what life looks like, but then what? What does that mean?
Yeah, and I think that's the scary part because now your future's uncertain. It's a blank slate and not like in a fun way.
Right.
Right? It's like, where am I going to live? And I think, I don't know if this sounds silly to you or the listeners, but I do think people get surprised how impactful divorce is. It isn't just like, okay, I'm getting divorced and I know this is going to affect me, my kids, and like our living arrangement, right? But what I think is surprising to people is like, and why they come see you. I mean, I'm very specifically divorced, right? But like they probably come see you for that reason, but also like your whole life explodes. There is not one area of your life that is not changed by divorce. Your money, your friendships, your family, even if they're on your side, right? Which we hope they are, barring any crazy situations.
Right.
But I'm sure we've seen it all at this point.
Yes, you never know, really.
Your work, right? Your work, your parenting, your ability to travel, buy the products that you used to buy because maybe your finances have everything.
And even to your self-identity, right?
Yes.
So all of that is like all of that external, which shatters completely and totally changes, but then who your identity is, right? Who you built this like self-identity around. And then that also impacts your nervous system too, right? Like that's totally out of whack because now again you're seeking this control that you don't have. You're having to be in situations where you thought that there was going to be somebody with you and now there isn't, or realize that you couldn't count on them and now I can't count on anybody, right? Like there's so much that just like totally shatters. It's every part of your life. You're right.
Yeah. So I think going back to like the difference between me and you and why somebody would need both. Bottom line, I hope they see one of us, right? If they have to. If they have to pick one, pick either one, right? But, I think people are surprised at the team of people that it
Yes.
takes to lead them through the marathon and over the finish line. Because I know for me personally, when I got divorced 10 years ago, divorce coaching was just, kind of being established. And I think still people are not familiar with, different areas of help that they can get.
Yeah.
What do you think of when you get a divorce? I need a lawyer. And then
Right.
that's who everyone pours
Right.
all of their energy into, is their lawyer. But guess what? Your lawyer is there to practice the law. There to tell you by law, this is like the bare minimum that we need to do and
Right.
like negotiate back and forth.
Right.
But they're not therapists. They're not divorce coaches. They're not financial advisors. They're
Right.
not somatic practitioners for your
Right.
nervous system.
Right. Helping with your taxes, helping with your life insurance, helping with whatever, all of those things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, part of my practice is gently mentioning other people
Right.
that might be able to help them depending on what their situation is. Now, do I think everyone needs all of the people that I just mentioned? Yes, that would be great.
Yeah.
But try telling someone who's already financially strapped, okay,
Right.
now you need to hire 5 more people. It's
Right.
not possible. But if you're, part of my thing is, and maybe yours is like, what are your stressors in this divorce? Because it's not always money and it's not always the kids and it's not always the house, right? But if it is any of those things that keep coming up, wow, you sound really stressed about money, because that is like the basis of our conversations. I am not a financial planner. I'm not a financial analyst, but I know really great ones that who can help you. And so, getting this team approach of like, I would love to sit there all day, every day and like talk to you about your emotions and how your life is going. But at the same time, like, my job is to move you forward through the process. But Brittany would love to help like dissect how this is affecting everything else.
Right. Right. Absolutely. And I think with that and with this team of people, I similarly am such a big fan of the collaborative approach because we all do have our different specialties. And I can hear past clients and future clients, right? With this, I should be able to handle it,
Mm,
right? There's that should. And the reality is why would you know how to handle this thing that you've never handled before? And it's
mhm.
a huge, huge thing, right? And so, like, how can we look for the people who do have these specialties, who can kind of hold you in these different spaces? And I think that, when we have that mindset, instead of the I should be able to handle this, when you have all these people in your corner, it's more of you're actually taking this really seriously because
Yeah.
you know that this is something that's really impacting your life. So let me gather the supports that I need, while also, as we know, asking for help is really hard, right? That can be a
Yes.
terrifying thing to ask for help.
Yeah.
And even if you're hiring them, right, there still is this, I should be able to do this. I should be able to handle
Yeah,
this.
that's so interesting that you bring that up, because I am guilty of that, right? Like, if you're a fiercely independent person, it's like, I figure everything out myself. I can just fake my way through this. And it's like, we were never taught, right? Like, most of us in our upbringing, it's like, oh, you're going to get married one day and have this beautiful marriage. But nobody's like, if that marriage doesn't work, this is what the steps are, right? It's like taxes. Nobody teaches us how to
Right, right. You have no idea.
and the only guidance we get is like whatever our parents did, or
Right.
our
Which
friends'
isn't always the
parents.
best example.
No. And so it's like, and that's how I was when I got divorced. It's like, first of all, if you're coming from a divorced family, 99.9% guarantee you thought, I'm never going to do that to my
Yep.
kids. That's never going to
Right, all
happen
the
to
time.
me. And so that brings in that emotional part where you're like, God, I'm so mad at myself. How did I let this happen? I told
Right.
myself it
Right.
wasn't going to happen.
Right.
And that's that acceptance. Okay, Shauna, it happened. Now what do we do? Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, my parents got divorced. That was a shit show. I certainly am not, I don't want to repeat what they did, but I don't know what is the right thing.
No, right, exactly. You have no other awareness of how that could be, unless there are other people in your lives who have gotten a divorce. And again, that could look different for every single person. Your situation would be so different. So yeah, I hear that all the time. And I also hear the other of their parents got divorced. And so they aren't going to do that. So then they're going to stay and they're going to stay together
Mm,
their kids through that. And so then
hmm.
there's also the emotional piece of that, of how is your relationship with your kids different than how your parents' relationship was with you? Like, how
Yeah.
can we choose to do something differently than how your parents did for you?
Yeah, and I'm sure, we've pretty much all seen this at this point in one capacity or another where it's like, "Oh, I'm just staying for the kids." Okay, well, there's another side to that
Right.
coin, right? And I'm interested in your thoughts from a therapy perspective of, there is that big should I stay or should I go? Because
Right. For sure.
either way, and I was just talking to this about a client yesterday. They're both hard choices. And so
Yeah.
you're having to choose your hard. Fast forward 5 years. Do you still want to be in this household
Right.
living this life? Or are we going to go through a couple years of really hard, confusing, gut wrenching situations? But then
Right.
they can't see the other side, I guess,
Right.
is the point.
Right.
We can probably see that for them, but they can't see it. And it's like, do I stay or do I go? And then you get divorced when your kids go to college because that's what you think is.
Right. They're out of the house. Right. They're out of the house. They don't have to deal with it. They're on their own now. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you ever have clients who get stuck in the process and we're
Mm.
not sure how to move forward?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've seen this play out in a couple of different ways with my clients. I have had a client who I was seeing, gosh, I was seeing her for probably like 4 years for a variety of different things. And that entire time she was talking about how she needed to get a divorce and how she wanted to get
Mm.
a divorce. But there were so many different obstacles, like, financial, the kids, the house, all of that, but also this internal of, at least I know this hard, right? When we're talking about the hard,
Yeah, it's
like,
the devil I know.
exactly. Like, at least I know this. I'm not happy. This is terrible. She was having all of these, traumatic responses, and yet she knew and expected it. And so, and you're right, like, you can't see what the other side is or what the other side looks like. And so part of that is like working through it, looking at, how can we build trust in ourselves? What is it that we want? If we can't make that big change, are there smaller changes that we can make, right? Like, so that's one example of that, because it is a huge decision. It's a big life-changing decision. And some people have hope that it's going to change and they want to try and, all of that.
Yeah. And do you ever suggest putting a time frame? I know that sounds silly, right? Because on one hand, we don't want to rush the decision. I do feel like some people rush the decision, right?
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, it's like if your life is still the same in a year, right?
Hmm.
Then I think at least we need to reflect on, okay, is it the job that's
Right.
burnout, right? And we're all unhappy. Is it financial straps? Like we can't, because that is real. That's a real
Absolutely.
stress.
Absolutely.
But do you ever give your clients okay, let's keep going, right? Keep talking it through, but let's check in with ourselves in 3 months, six
Yeah.
months, a year, and see how we feel.
I think that it's hard. I don't really give that timeline. I don't say, is this going to, in a year, let's do this. I think that as we're working together, we're kind of constantly doing that check in,
Mm-hmm.
of what is life right now? What is it that we feel okay with? What is it that we don't feel okay with? What do we want to change? What is that secret thing deep down that we know needs to shift, but we're too scared to say out loud? So we're
Mm-hmm.
kind of always looking at those things. And there does get to be a point when, if I'm working for somebody for that long and we have the rapport that's built, I'm pretty confrontational in a way that can be helpful in the sense of like, okay, we've noticed that these things keep coming up. Something has to shift. What is it that is going to shift? Right. And we kind of work on that. And sometimes it is like, when is the divorce happening? You know what I mean?
Or it's like I have kind of conquered all of
Mhm.
the money, the job,
Right.
the this, and this is still
Right,
a
right.
baseline problem, like no matter what I change, you know what
Right.
I mean? Does that ever come up?
Yeah, yeah, it does. Again, that's usually for folks where I'm working with for a longer period of time where we are navigating all those things and there is the trust that is being built within yourself. And it is like something big needs to shift. Like we're at a point now where something big needs to shift. And I will not be the person that says it has to be the doors or it has to be this, but it
Mhm.
is the reflection of we're doing all of these things, we're doing all these changes, and something like things are still not working, right? Like we
Mhm.
need to do something. So there's that. But even with that recognition, as you know, it's still so hard to do. It's hard to
Mhm.
make those steps. And so the way that I work is a lot of that, like building that self trust internally. Like, even if this
Mhm.
huge thing happens and your world shifts, like, how do we build the trust within yourself that you'll be able to handle it? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And a lot of times you mentioned the like super hyper independence before. A lot of it is like you had to handle everything on your own. And so you're going to continue to do it. And I'll say all the time, like, you will be fine. These things will be fine. And it's also going to be so hard, right? Like we have to sit
Right.
the
Yeah,
hard
and I think
reality of it.
sometimes like with women specifically, it's
Mhm.
like I'm scared of being a single mom. You're already a
You're already
single
doing
mom.
it. Right. You're already doing it. Yeah,
I'm
exactly that.
scared of having to like take care of the house myself.
Yeah.
You're already doing that. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And like I love that we're in an era where women are able to make their own money and be like the breadwinner and all of those things. But then you are most of the time still cutting out one income, right? And
Right.
it's like
And
you
your life
have
shifts. That
already
is
figured
your
it
life.
all. You've shown that you figured it out. And so I think sometimes they don't see what we see.
Yeah.
And we have to be the ones to be like, you're already doing the thing that you're scared of doing.
Right, you're already there, you're already doing it, right, that emotional support that you are craving from this other person isn't happening. You guys have tried, you've tried the communicating, and it doesn't always mean, the people get separated and divorced for so many different reasons. It doesn't always mean that the person is a bad person. They just
Right.
might not have the capacity to be able to give you love and the love that you need to be able to care for you in the way that you need to be cared for, right? Like it doesn't mean that they have to be this terrible person. Now, there's some times where it's really high conflict, we're in a different situation, right? But like that's why there's so many different ways that this could play out. And like going back
Mhm.
to your question before of like what does it look like where some people are in that in between, I had another person I was working with who they got separated and they were separated for about 3 years before making the actual like divorce decision
Mm.
because they were trying to figure out what it looks like for them. So much of the therapy piece is like, it does not have to look any particular way. It can look
Right.
like how you all need it to look. So would I
Mhm.
consider that stuck? I don't think I'd consider it stuck. I think it's they're following their own path there.
Yes. And so that's exactly the same thing that I deal with, right? Whereas, they think either I or the other person have made the decision to end the marriage. And he's telling me I have to be out of the house by the end of the week.
Mm.
And you're in this spiral because you think what they say is law. And
Mm.
so part of my job, and I'm assuming probably your job, is like, let's pause. Okay, let's think about this logically. If you went into a courthouse today in front of a judge, I love to play the like, let's pretend we're in court game.
Yeah.
Is the judge going to be like, he asked for a separation on Tuesday. You have until Friday to get out of here? No judge in
No.
America. I don't care what state you're in. No judge in America is going to tell you to leave. So they feel this pressure. I'll have a consultation and I'm like, we haven't even like gotten to how many kids do you have
Right.
involved? And it's like, I have to move out. I need to get my own car insurance. I need to pay these bills. I just started this new job. And it's like, the only pressure that you're under is either from you or that other person. And I go, that is why we have a separation period. So that you can figure out, can we reasonably cohabitate during separation, or does one of us have to move out? Do we have to move out week 1, month 1, when the divorce is finalized in 2 years? Like, there's no playbook. And I also think that is why it is hard because no one is telling you what to do.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And that's where the like, because as we've talked about, your entire life shifts, your whole life shifts and change and feels like it's blowing up. And this is my to-do list now because you're trying to find some semblance of control.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah,
that
that's a good
then
point.
feels like if I can do these things, at least there's something that I can control, right? We're trying to grasp and hold on for those little bits. And you're right. I say the pause, right? Like I say it like, hold on.
Let them spiral, let them crash out for a minute, and then it's like,
Right.
okay, breathe and
Yeah.
pause.
We have to take a moment to pause, right? Like, and to sit and say, what is actually happening right now? What is it that I actually need to look at right now? Because all of these 8,000 things, sure, they're all important. Yes, we need to do that. And yet, like, what is going on in this exact moment? Do I need to just be here for a second and to breathe and to allow my brain to come back online because I was panicking? Do I need to
Mhm.
take some deep breaths? Do I need to take a cold shower? Like, how do I get myself back here in this spot so that I then can take that next step, whatever that next step might be?
Right, right. And I love to be, my goal is to like be the friend or the support that I wish I had in my divorce. And so I'm going to treat you, it's like when you call your best friend to just like vent about your husband or your job or, whatever annoyance is going on, and they let you
Yeah.
do it, and then they're like, okay, but you know that this person always does this, or you always do this, and you feel better at the end of talking to them. They have that like logical side that they can tell
Yeah.
you that you can't see because you're so in it that you can't see, and they're just like, what are you like, this is not even a reason to crash out, like what are we doing?
Yeah, it's so funny hearing you say that because I will often when I'm having consultations with people, I will say to them, I'm like, I will be there. I will listen to you. I will support you. I will validate you. And I will also challenge you, right? Like,
Yeah,
and I will also
yeah, I'm gonna
lovingly.
say some things you don't like.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Because part of this is like, how are we see things through our lens. What is it
Mhm.
like for having somebody view it through a different lens and be able to have us shift our perspective? That doesn't mean in every area, right? But there
Mhm.
is how are we going to lovingly challenge that
Mhm.
person so that they can grow in their perspective or whatever it is, right? So it is
Mhm.
that bolt of like, I'm going to hear you. I'm going to sit with you. I'm going to validate you. And like the acceptance of, and this is what's happening, right?
Mhm.
Or like, this might be the perspective that the other person has. I don't know. But like, would that change something if you knew that that was their perspective? Who knows,
Yeah.
right? But it allows us to shift the mindset just a little bit.
Yeah, no, I really like that. And something that I've been wanting to like bring up throughout the conversation is, and again, I was just recently talking to a client about this. Divorce specifically is still one of those things that is so vulnerable
Mhm.
and shameful, right? We still kind of see it. If you're listening, I did air quotes. It's not shameful, but we feel like it is. And you can tell me if this is appropriate or not, because this is also your other area of expertise where it's like, I almost think of it in line with like coming out, right? Like, who
Mhm.
is safe to have this conversation with? Once I have a couple safe conversations, maybe I feel emboldened to be more vulnerable with others.
Right.
And then there are some others that are just not safe to have this conversation with.
Right.
But we keep our divorce very close to our chest because we are embarrassed, ashamed, angry, guilty. We don't want anyone peeking behind the curtains of our marriage. Oh my God, you guys looked perfect, whatever the case may be. And so with this client yesterday, she's like, why do I feel so ashamed? I felt the same way. And I'm like, I had to talk to myself. I'm like, Shauna, at that point, it's like 2016. I'm like, it's 2016. Like, people get divorced. Come on, get
Yeah.
over it, right? And now I do think it's better now, like everything else, it's getting better.
Right.
But it's still like
Yeah.
yucky to society. And
Yeah.
I wanted to plug your support group, was my whole point. Because
Yeah.
it's very hard to find support groups for divorce. Um, that are not church affiliated. That was my struggle 10 years ago. And I did go to one that was church affiliated because that was really all that I could find. And I did grow up in the church. So I was like, okay. But it was like, if I had other options, I think I would have. And there was, I think, is yours all female or no?
Yes.
Is that the goal? So, and like my thing was like, okay, there's men in here. We're all different ages. We're all in different areas of life. I had a newborn. Somebody's going through a gray divorce. You know what I mean? Like, yes, we're all kind of going through this, but differently. And then I would see, like, if you're on the dating apps, then you're sitting across from somebody that you saw on the dating app and you're like, ew, I don't know. That's weird. So anyway, I wanted to plug for those in the Richmond area. You are starting
You can be anywhere in Virginia.
Right. Virginia and Florida, correct?
Yep. Yeah. You can be anywhere in Virginia and Florida. It's a life after divorce.
I keep forgetting it's virtual, not in person.
Yeah. Okay. It's virtual. The next round of it is starting January 23rd. And what I like, you were talking about how people can be at different phases of it. And we're going to find that with folks, right? But what I love about this group is the way that I run it is I'm also an art therapist. I can't remember if we said that in the beginning or not, but we do a little bit of a check-in. We then do some time for I'll give a prompt, whatever the prompt may be. Maybe it is the self-esteem, or maybe it is the guilt, or whatever. And we'll take some time and do, whether it's art, whether it's creative writing, something where we're taking a moment to reflect internally. And then we share as much or as little as you want with the group around that. And then that then leads into a conversation. So depending on wherever it is that you are in your own journey, you're allowed to have that internal reflection and then see and get support from others. Maybe they've already gone through that. Maybe people haven't gone through it before and you're able to get that support from others. So I like how it really helps or allows for people who are at multiple points in the process to get that reflection, also that just support and being in a space where you are with people who get it. Because as you were saying before, we wear this mask, right? There is a lot of shame that is there. And I think that that's for so many different reasons, right? Of how women are supposed to be in society. Depending on your upbringing, you had to be the one that held it all together or managed everything for everybody else around you. And so if you then aren't perfect, right? What are people going to say? What are people going to think? And a divorce is a pretty public way of right? This isn't something that I can necessarily hide.
Oh my gosh. I wish we had 3 hours to
right.
Things that I'm thinking about are like, it's so public, and my experience and the experience of basically all the other women and I hate to say it is harder on the women because I don't really see dad's fatherhood coming under such a microscope as you do of the parenting that the mom is doing. It becomes like weaponized, right? Like every decision that you make, every scrape that kid gets, the clothes that they're like, everything. Right. Your motherhood. Talk about going into court. I felt like every time I went to court, I was being held hostage for like what kind of mom I was. And I did not feel that from the other side. And any man can come in the comments and tell me, again, with everything else, stereotypically, are there exceptions? 100% yes.
Right. Absolutely.
But my experience is like the mom.
And that's your identity that's being
pressure. So much pressure to be perfect during the divorce. Even more. Yeah.
Right. Even more so, because then again, like you had all of these different ways that you formed your identity, and everyone has, they're different, but whether it's my identity as a mom, my identity as a wife, my identity at whatever, all of these different things. And now those are being shattered. Those are being questioned. Again, this identity of like, everyone only sees me this one way as perfect and I need to hold that together. Right. And so being in spaces like that group or, just with other people who get it, where it might even be scary for you to fully take off that mask, but for you to just like lift it a little bit, right? you were saying like, who's safe, who's not safe, right? There is this like, let me look around. And you might have had to do that for other areas of your life based on how you were grown up or based on how you grew up and were raised. And you're constantly scanning for who's safe. And now this is that big thing. So finding a group, like you said, where there are people who at least that they're going through, not exactly the same, because as we've discussed, it happens differently for everybody, but a place where you can name that this is something that you are experiencing.
Yeah, and I think just to broaden your network because, Shauna might not always be available. Brittany might not always be available. Oh, we've got our set appointments, but I really need to like talk to a friend right now. So it does lend itself because it is lonely. Like I was 30 when I got divorced. People are still getting married and having babies. Nobody's
Right.
getting divorced. And so I'm like, I can't really, I mean, you can vent to your friends, but if they haven't, they're just kind of like, I don't really know what to tell like to tell you to do, which is fair, right? And so just like broadening your net of people that you can, commiserate with. And I told about your support group yesterday to my client, and because she's like, oh, I wish there was a friend. I wish I had a friend who was going through this, but it was like productive. She goes, I don't just want to bitch fest because that can really obviously weigh on you if you're just sitting there constantly bitching about everything. And I was like, oh, I'm glad you brought that up. Because I do think it's important. That goes kind of back to like that stuck feeling. I'm sure you've seen it. I've seen it where if you go through a divorce and you get stuck in that angry place where you were wronged, this is not fair, that is now your whole identity, right? You see people who have been divorced for 30 years still talking about how they got wronged by their ex. Nobody wants to become that person. And so yes, you can go through the emotions, and we also need to keep moving forward because, if you're 30, 40, whatever, 50, you still have a whole second half.
Yep. You have so much life. Right. And you can
get stuck.
Yeah. And then there's also the layer too of that, of when we hold on to this anger, which you have every right to be angry for whatever it is. I can't tell you yes, no, whatever. The anger is that's there and that's okay. And again with the right? At what point are you handing over your power to this other person? Right? At what point are we taking that back and saying, I actually don't want you to have this much power over me still to where you are impacting all of these emotions, my day to day. I'm not an angry person and yet I feel all of this, right? And so like having to move through a lot of that too. We don't have to be like, let me get rid of the anger completely if we're feeling it. But as you said, like, how do we also work with this? How do we move through some of that? How do we recognize and say like, who is it that I want to be in this life, right? How do I want to show up? And that you get to choose that too.
Yeah, I think that is so powerful. It's something that we have in common. We were talking about kind of like the differences and the similarities where, especially in my co-parenting practice, or if there's like post-separation abuse. I mean, a lot of what I do is educating, right? Like you don't know that post-separation abuse exists until it's happening to you. And you don't know what to name it unless you're willing to do some like research. Right? It was one of those things going back. Like we're not just taught what post-separation. And I didn't even know what it was until I got this career. And I was like, well, there's a name for what I went through.
There's a name for what I'm feeling. Yeah.
You do, again, you don't want people to think that like why would you marry a psycho? Like, why would you do that? Right. And that's a whole other conversation. Where was I going with this? Where it's just like so when I'm meeting with clients, you have to say, you're giving them way too much of your energy. Like, look at how much energy you're spending on this.
Right.
Your kids could use that energy. Heck, you could use that energy. What are you doing on your time off with, when they're at the other parents? Because we need to use that time to like refill some of our supplies that are being depleted. But like, if you're getting triggered every time you see that name on the phone, which I guarantee you is happening, and like, that's where those tools come in place that we can offer that they're not aware of. Because I don't want this to become your whole like
Right.
hill that you're going to die on and like, oh, don't talk to Shauna about her divorce. She's never going to shut up about it because she's still angry, 10 years later.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is where, when we're talking about the Venn diagram and that overlap again, sometimes right away, like you need the skills. Like I need to give you, here are the tools, here are the coping skills, here are the things that you can do immediately. And then we get into the emotions piece, right? But they're like,
Yes.
sometimes they're like, I just need to know how to handle this in the moment. And it's like, great. Here are these tools. Here are these ways that you can do it. So
100%.
think of that also before we're like diving into the process.
Right. It's like, okay, put the Band-Aid on the leak first. And then like this, this little thing should help for right now. But especially if you've been meeting this client, like you said, a few times and you're like, this seems to be a recurring issue. We need to fix the leak now and see why does this keep happening. Okay, well, when you keep responding to his text messages the way that you're responding, I know why this is happening. Like your response needs to change. And that goes back to that boundary, which hello, nobody has boundaries unless you are actively taught or that's something that you need to work on. And even when you know that you need boundaries, that does not mean that is easy.
No. And how do we implement?
You mean I ignore the text message, okay?
Right, absolutely. And that goes into like all the, that's what we need to do right now. But what are the stories that we're telling ourselves about setting boundaries, right? Like, am I not being nice then, right?
Right. And I was going to say, I'm sure we see these themes, especially with females. It's like, I want to be nice. Yeah. I want to be seen as cooperative. Okay, yeah. When I am going to court, like Shauna always makes me imagine, how is this situation going to look to, the judge and jury? Like, am I? And so that does bring, bleed into that distrust of ourselves, especially if you have someone that's like, you suck, that does not help. So anyway, yes, I think that that is the point where it's like, we need to fix the root here. But in the meantime, do these things.
Right. Exactly. And the way that I will often talk to folks too, especially because we do a lot of like looking at the past, kind of seeing how we got here. And I'm like, we don't need to do that to get stuck in the past, but it does inform, it lets us know how we're showing up today so that we then can make a choice on how we want to move forward in the future, right? Like we're looking at all of those different things. But anyway, I know that we could be talking forever.
I know. We'll have to just have you come back so we can expand on some of these. But I mean, is there any like final thoughts or encouragement for the listeners or just, anything in general?
Yeah, I think that it is like, just remember that this isn't something that people just know how to go through, And so you are experiencing this stress, you're experiencing this turmoil because like there is no roadmap to it, and like giving yourself some grace around this is the first, like you're just trying to figure this out because this is maybe the first time that you're experiencing it. For others, it might be multiple times, which is okay. And it's different each time. But like, you're not just like born knowing how to deal with this. So when things come up, like recognize it and give yourself a little bit of grace for going through this really hard situation.
Yeah. And I would say, a good sign that you do need, I mean, I feel like everyone could use support, divorce or not, right? Somebody needs help somewhere. But I think if you're listening and you're trying to decide like either to reach out to one of us or just like somebody else in the field, it's like those thoughts that if you keep having these thoughts or these problems like circle in your mind and you have not been able to come up with an answer yourself, but every day and every night you're like thinking about these things, that's probably your sign to reach out to somebody that can help support you.
And that doesn't mean that it's a failure, right? Like, because you need that help, it's more of, again, like you're taking this seriously. You're taking your life seriously. So you want to be able to get help from people who know what they're doing, know what they're talking about, right?
I mean, I talk about this in my business and my personal life. I'm like, I don't have all the answers, but I'm really good at finding the people who do have the answers that I don't have. I don't have to know everything.
Absolutely.
Okay, well,
Absolutely.
thank you so much for sharing your time and your insight with us today. I guess if anyone was interested in reaching out to you or working with you, you do work with people in Virginia and Florida,
Mm-hmm.
correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Virtually, Virginia and Florida. Yeah, they can find me on my website, creativesourcecounseling.com. I have availability for one on one therapy. And also, as I said, I'm running that Life After Divorce therapy group. The next round starts January 23rd. But if you're listening to this afterwards, see when the next
Reach out.
round is. I'd love to, yeah,
Yeah.
reach out. I'd love to have you. You can also follow me on Instagram. My handle is brittany.deutsch. And I post random things on there too. I'd love to hear from you all. Reach out, say hi, and yeah.
Thank you. And we'll have you back to kind of dive deeper into a lot of the things that we weren't able to like get into so much today.
Yeah, I would love that.
All right. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you next time.
Thanks. All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. If you're navigating the challenging journey of divorce and need personalized guidance, I'm here to help. As a dedicated divorce coach, I can support you through every step of the process, providing the tools and strategies you need to rebuild and thrive. Visit my website at shaunawardencoaching.com to book your appointment today. Remember, you don't have to go through this alone. Together, we can turn this difficult time into a new beginning. Until next time, take care and stay strong.